Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into something we do every single day? We're going to explore how we talk about the future in English.
And it might sound basic at first, but I promise it's more interesting than you think.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Because we're not just talking about saying, I will or I'm going to. We're going to uncover all those subtle ways native speakers actually talk about what's to come.
That sounds way more up my alley.
Exactly. Think about this for a second. When we talk about the future, it's not just one giant blob of what might happen,
Huh?
right?
That's true.
We have solid plans, we have hopes and dreams, and we have things like schedules that are completely fixed.
Right, and I bet there's a whole art to expressing each of those in a way that sounds natural and fluent.
Absolutely. So let's kick things off with something you probably do all the time without even realizing the cool grammar behind it. Talking about plans using the present continuous tense.
Wait, really? I thought present continuous was for things happening right this second.
Uh-huh. That's the cool part. You see, when you say something like, I'm meeting a friend for lunch tomorrow, the action itself is in the future, right? But the way you express it makes it sound more immediate, more like it's already in motion.
Oh, I see. It's like saying, this is definitely happening, but in a relaxed way.
Right.
Not like some robot announcing a schedule.
Exactly. And this works especially well for plans that have a set time or place. Like,
Yeah.
if someone asks, what are you doing this weekend? You wouldn't say, I will go to the park.
Right.
That sounds so stiff.
It does.
Instead, you'd naturally say, I'm going to the park.
Right. Like it's already decided. It's a done deal.
Exactly. It just slips right off the tongue.
So that's for plans we're pretty certain about. What about those times when we have big goals for the future, but we haven't figured out all the details yet?
Ah, great question. That's where we bring in some other handy phrases.
Okay, hit me with them.
Well, you could say things like, I'm hoping to travel the world someday, or my dream is to write a novel. Notice how these capture that sense of longing or aspiration.
Yeah. They definitely sound more exciting than just stating, I will travel someday.
Yeah. They add that emotional layer. You're not just stating a fact, you're expressing a desire, a goal you're moving towards.
This is making me rethink how I talk about the future already. So we've covered those concrete plans with that cool present continuous trick and those bigger goals that are still taking shape. But what about those times when the future's already set in stone, like with schedules and timetables?
Ooh, good point. That's where things get even more interesting.
Okay, I'm ready to hear it. How do we tackle those fixed future events?
Well, think about a train schedule for a second. It doesn't say the train will probably leave at 8 a.m. It states it as a fact. The train leaves at 8 a.m.
Oh, right, because with the schedule, there's no room for maybes or perhapses.
Exactly. And that's when the simple present tense steps in.
Yeah.
It's not just for describing things happening right now. It's also for those future events that are bound by a timetable. Flights, concerts, even the World Cup final. They all follow this pattern.
So it's like the simple present tense becomes a time traveler in these cases, jumping ahead and treating those future events as certainties.
I love that. You're catching on quickly. And,
Yeah.
it's actually quite comforting in a world full of uncertainties. Those timetables offer a sense of order and predictability.
I never thought about it that way, but you're right. It's like a little island of this will happen
Yeah.
in the vast sea of who knows what the future holds.
Exactly. But of course, not everything in the future is so clear-cut. Sometimes we have to talk about all the possibilities and what-if scenarios.
Right, like predictions. Will it rain tomorrow? Will I win the lottery? The age-old questions, haha.
And the beauty of English is that it gives us multiple ways to express those predictions, each with its own shade of meaning.
Ooh, I'm always up for expanding my vocabulary. Tell me more.
Well, the most common verbs we use for predictions are will and going to. You've probably heard both used interchangeably, and for the most part, they are.
So if I say it will rain tomorrow, or it's going to rain tomorrow, they're both correct.
Absolutely. However, there's a slight nuance. Going to often suggests a stronger sense of certainty, perhaps based on some evidence you're seeing right now.
Okay, I get it. So if I look outside and see dark storm clouds gathering, I might say, it's going to rain, with more conviction.
Exactly. Well, will is a bit more open-ended. It covers those predictions where we're not quite as sure.
Wow, I'm starting to see how these small tweaks in wording can really change how we express our thoughts about the future.
And if you want to get even more specific with your predictions, you can add adverbs like definitely, probably, unlikely, or even possibly. These act like fine-tuning knobs, letting you express different levels of certainty.
It's like adding special effects to a movie, making the prediction more dramatic or subtle, depending on the feeling you want to convey.
That's a brilliant analogy. You see, mastering future talk isn't just about knowing the rules. It's about playing with the language. experimenting with different shades of meaning to paint a vivid picture for your listener.
I'm loving this. Okay, so we've covered predictions, where we have at least some idea of what might happen, even if it's just a gut feeling. But what about those times when the future is a total mystery, full of maybes and what-ifs?
Ah, yes. That's where those wonderful modal verbs come in. May, might, and could.
I'll admit those have always tripped me up a bit.
Yeah.
They all seem to express uncertainty, but I'm never quite sure which one to use.
Well, think of them as a spectrum of possibility. May suggests a slightly higher probability than might, which in turn suggests a slightly higher probability than could.
Okay, so if I say it may rain tomorrow, I'm suggesting there's a decent chance of rain. But if I say it could rain tomorrow, I'm leaving things more open-ended.
Precisely. You're acknowledging that rain is one potential outcome, but there could be many others that are just as likely.
This is starting to make sense. It's like those modal verbs give us the power to fine-tune those shades of uncertainty. Instead of just saying, I don't know, we can say it might happen or it's possible but unlikely.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that even when we're expressing uncertainty, we're still engaging with the future. We're trying to make sense of those unknown paths ahead.
It's like we're acknowledging the mystery, but we're not afraid to explore it.
And sometimes that's where the most interesting conversations begin. But let's take a short break to let all of this sink in. We'll be right back with even more ways to master future talk in English.
And we're back. I feel like we've already uncovered so much about how to talk about the future.
But we've only just begun.
Okay, lay it on me. What else is there to learn about future talk?
Well, let's dive into those what-if scenarios, the ones that really get our imaginations going, the hypothetical futures that may or may not ever happen.
Oh, you mean like what if I suddenly won the lottery? Or what if we all had flying cars?
Exactly. And to explore those possibilities, we use what we call conditional sentences. They're all about playing with cause and effect, imagining how different choices might lead to different outcomes.
So I could say something like, if I had a time machine, I would go back and visit ancient Rome.
Perfect example. Notice how you use the past tense had, even though you're talking about a hypothetical future. It's a little grammar quirk, but it tells us that this is an imagined world, not our current reality.
So it's like creating a separate timeline, branching off from the present moment.
Precisely. It's like opening a door to a world of possibilities. We can explore dreams, regrets, and all sorts of what-ifs.
I love how language can do that. Create entire worlds with just a few words. But speaking of time travel, let's talk about another way we can play with time. The future, perfect tense.
Yes. This one's all about looking back from a point in the future and describing actions that will have already been completed.
So instead of just saying, I will finish the report,
Yeah.
I could say, by Friday, I will have finished the report.
Exactly. It adds that extra layer of certainty, like you're standing in that future moment looking back at the finished task.
It's like time-stamping our future achievements, declaring them as done deals.
You got it. And what's also really interesting about future talk? It's how closely it's tied to our emotions, to our hopes and fears.
Right. Like those sayings, the future is bright, or time will tell.
Exactly. They reflect our shared human experience of looking ahead to what might be. They remind us that future talk isn't just about grammar rules. It's about something much bigger.
Wow. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I'm really starting to appreciate the depth and nuance of talking about the future in English.
And remember, it's a journey of continuous learning. The more you play with the language, the more confident and expressive you'll become.
I can't wait to put all these tips into practice. Who knows what amazing conversations await.
Until next time, may your future be filled with fascinating discussions and exciting possibilities.
Welcome back. We've covered so much ground already. Feels like we've unlocked a whole new level of fluency.
And there's still more to discover.
Okay, I'm all ears. What other fascinating aspects of future talk are we diving into today?
Well, let's talk about those what-if scenarios. The ones that really spark our imagination. The hypothetical futures that might or might not ever come true.
Oh, you mean like, what if I suddenly developed superpowers? Or what if we could teleport?
Exactly. And to explore those possibilities, we use something called conditional sentences. They're all about playing with cause and effect, imagining how different choices could lead to different outcomes.
So I might say, if I had $1 million, I would travel the world.
Perfect example. Notice how you used the past tense had, even though you're talking about a hypothetical future. It's a bit of a grammatical quirk, but it tells us that this is an imagined world, not our current reality.
So it's like creating a separate timeline, a branching path from the present.
Precisely. It allows us to explore those dreams, regrets, and possibilities that shape how we think about the future. And speaking of time, let's talk about another way we can manipulate it through language. The future perfect tense.
Ooh, okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
This tense is all about looking back from a future point and describing actions that will have been completed by then.
So instead of saying I will finish the book, I could say by next month I will have finished the book.
Exactly. It adds that sense of accomplishment. Like,
Yeah.
you're already standing in that future moment looking back at the finished task.
It's like we're time-stamping our future achievements, declaring them as done deals.
You got it. And what I find really fascinating about future talk is how closely it's tied to our emotions, our hopes, and even our fears.
Right. Like those sayings, the future is bright or time will tell.
Exactly. Those phrases capture our collective wisdom and anxieties about what lies ahead. They remind us that future talk isn't just about grammar rules, it's about our shared human experience.
This deep dive has been amazing. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how to talk about the future in English.
And remember, it's a journey of constant exploration. The more you play with the language, the more fluent and expressive you'll become.
I'm excited to put all these tips into practice. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the future of English.
And until next time, keep exploring those fascinating possibilities and never stop learning.